Great. I'm going to be talking to you about AI. I'm not going to make any more excuses about the technical stuff because we'll just go for it. So I'm going to talk about the next generation of AI with .NET. That's the same thing again. So to start with, things in AI are moving at a rapid pace. I just taught a workshop yesterday. We did a survey beforehand and asking people about their level of like what they knew about Microsoft extensions for AI and MCP and all these different technologies. And it was an anonymous survey and people were honest and they're like, basically nobody had been using some of the newest things, which is fine. That's what you're at a conference for. But one of the messages somebody said was, I'm struggling keeping up. Like there's so many new technologies. I don't even know where to get started. That's what I'm hoping to get out of this. And that really resonated with me. I'll be honest, like myself, people with front row seats in AI are still struggling to keep up. There's a lot of stuff going on. So things are moving at a very rapid pace. ChatGPT was released in 2022. It seems like a long time ago. So much has changed since then. Looking at days to 100 million users. So Netflix, 1277 down to 5 days for ChatGPT. And we're looking at the amount of time it takes for to double the amount of time to like double the productivity of AI is changing every 7 months. So if you've looked at building things with AI in the past, there were so many different things you needed to set up. You needed to understand different models. You may have worked with things like ML.NET, some different, like things where you need to train on data, stuff like that. And that's all relatively changed. These were all things that you could do in the past that took special things. Now you can do them all in generative AI. And fortunately, you can do them all with .NET. Here, let me go back to that just a second. So people always focus on with AI, it's all about the chatbot. And well, chat is an interface that we think about for a lot of things with interaction. It is text-based. They're large language models, so we're communicating at a text-based level. We are still able to do quite a bit more. So what I like a light bulb moment for me that I hope you'll get to is when you are chatting, chat does not mean a chatbot on a screen. It can mean your code is passing text prompts to a backend LLM that is returning SQL to you, that is returning JSON data, right? I've seen amazing demos that were doing like financial projections. You'd have no idea that there was AI going on. And there's all these LLM conversations going on, passing JSON data back and forth, right? So you can do all of these different things. And I want to kind of like expand that as we go into this is not only just about chat, although that's a great hello world. So we are seeing, of course, a bunch of different generative AI things. There's, of course, Copilot. There's GitHub Copilot with assisted coding. Who here is using Copilot in an IDE daily? Okay, I'm all about it. What about in GitHub? For like, are you assigning issues to GitHub and having it open and create pull requests and stuff? No, seriously, not one hand. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is amazing. This is like life-changing for me. So what I'm doing now is I'm creating. Let me just because we're kind of freewheeling here a little bit. Let me see if I can do this. Let me go over to a repo that I worked on recently. Let's go to here. Let's go to a repo. Sorry, but my main goal here is that you get stuff out of today and that you learn things, and anything I'm super excited about, you may be too. So this is going to redirect. So there's a thing announced at Build where they talked about NL Web. NL Web is kind of this layer on top of existing web apps to kind of light up AI stuff. I was like, okay, I want to learn this. And the best way to learn is by writing code. So I wrote some code, and it looks like this may be the actual official .NET implementation of NL Web. So be careful what you start on. So what I did was I started creating issues, and then I would assign them to GitHub. Now, of course, I needed to review them quite a bit, but I would say like, hey, I want a comprehensive testing framework, right? So I went in here, I said, I listed out a bunch of stuff I wanted. I assigned it to GitHub Copilot. GitHub Copilot opened the pull request and then just started doing all this stuff for me, right? So for instance, like advanced tool system, right? And like just all these different things. So these pull requests are created. You'll see here those eyes in the corner down there. That means it's starting to work on them and it just goes to town on it. So it is transformed. This is all code I could have written in the past and it would have taken me a lot of time. And this is an example of how GitHub Copilot is transforming the way I'm working. I got a project that would have taken me months to get done in a matter of a couple of weeks. Still having to review the code a lot. It made some mistakes, but it was like I had a team working for me, right? So that is an example. Of course, there's GitHub Copilot for gaming. There's happened there. Okay. Should just stop presenting again. This is great. Okay, swap displays maybe. Okay, just see if that does anything. I'm seriously going to need to just monologue. That's going to be interesting. Let's go mirror. Okay. Let's try and present again. Okay. Now I need to swap displays. And then I need to like not breathe, I guess. Maybe that's the problem. I'll just see if I turn off subtitle. Okay. Okay. As another example, we have H&R Web or H&R Block Tax Assist. So this is an example. Taxes are difficult, right? Sometimes you don't even know where to start, what question to ask. Sometimes searching is not the most productive thing because you don't even know what to search for, right? So being able to ask a question that is translated into something useful is a great way to be productive. So H&R Block building on .NET. So that is super cool. The AI ecosystem with .NET is great. So there's a big ecosystem of products and tools out there, services that you can use. And it's great that you can just adopt those and start using those immediately and leverage all of that. So this includes, of course, all the Azure services, semantic kernel, GitHub, also, of course, OpenAI, but then vector databases like Quadrant, et cetera, model context protocol. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. So as a .NET developer, sometimes there are ecosystems you're like, I'd like to get in there, but I can't, I don't know Python or whatever. And you are enabled as a .NET developer to take advantage of all the best of AI in the ecosystem. Microsoft is of course, you know this, we're very heavily focused on AI. You can't watch a Microsoft presentation and not hear AI, AI, AI. It's all over, right? So every tech company is into this. We are very focused, for instance, on Microsoft extensions for AI. So the Microsoft extensions repo and NuGet packages have been out there for a while. I wasn't paying that much attention to them. However, I'm looking at these very closely now. Microsoft extensions for AI are basically a layer on top of all these different primitives. I just showed you this thing with like all these Quadrant and all these different AI backends. Do I use OpenAI or Azure OpenAI? Do I use all these different things? If you start going directly at the SDK level to each of those, it can be complicated. So MEAI kind of wraps all that up in an easier kind of .NET-y layer. It makes it real easy to get started. Vector data. A lot of what you're going to be doing is working with vectors. Large language models are built on multidimensional vectors that kind of condense a lot of text into a bunch of numbers. And manipulating numbers and working efficiently with numbers, being able to store those numbers, translate them back and forth into .NET primitives, et cetera, is very important. And vector data extensions does that for you. So a great way to think about these is if you're used to data annotations and you would mark up a field as a required field, or this is an email, or this is a primary key, you're able to mark up vector data the same way and be able to store it in vector databases very easily. MCP servers. Okay, who here is out here collecting MCPs like they're Pokemons, like tons of MCPs? No? Okay, I got more fun to show you there. MCPs are great. I'm using them a lot as a developer for productivity. They're also amazing in that you can build them and we're in .NET and make them available and part of this entire ecosystem. Now, those are a lot of different things. We've wrapped them up for you in AI templates. So I'm slightly short on time because of the technical rebellion going on up here against me. But the main thing I want you to take away from today is these AI templates. I'm going to spend the majority of my demo time showing you those AI templates. The reason why is they're a great thing that kind of encapsulates all these different things. I could learn about this. I could learn about MCP. I could learn about vector data. You can do file new project and get started and have working code quickly doing that. Semantic kernel. Semantic kernel is a lot of different languages and technologies at Microsoft. Great, amazing technologies, and .NET is a first-class citizen in that semantic kernel ecosystem. And finally, model evaluation. A lot of people are not paying attention to model evaluation. How many times have you asked an AI chat for information and it's just totally wrong, like laughably wrong, right? I was using AI in evaluating and writing a lab that I taught yesterday. And I was like, here's this workshop, here's this thing, get me started on the README for this document. It ignored the stuff that I gave it, and it invented some templates that we have not shipped yet. Maybe they're a good idea, I don't know, but they don't exist. And it wrote a whole workshop using these templates that are phony, right? So AI is amazing, but you have to check it. And fortunately, you can use model eval to do that. So we have a whole system for doing that with Azure DevOps, with basically TDD for AI. So you can test your results and make sure they're accurate, okay? So .NET for AI libraries. I like to think of these as entity framework for AI. Now, it's wrong in a lot of ways, probably. Tech people would be upset at me for saying this, but I don't care. It helps me think through this. So entity framework was great for me when I used to be a SQL Server developer writing .NET, and then it's like, I guess I'd like to try this database, but I need that SDK, and I don't really know how to write that SQL, and is it a slightly different dialect, and blah, 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 right? Now, as a .NET developer, I'm in Postgres, I'm in SQLite, I'm in throw a new vector database at me. Sure, I'll learn Quadrant, no problem, right? So that's different like Cosmos DB. I'm able to use EF with that, right? So the same sort of idea applies with these .NET AI libraries. It's a layer on top where you write AI code and you can point at different providers and different things, all right? So these unified APIs, one of the top level things is these common AI abstractions. I'm going to be showing you an iChat client that lets you write AI code that can point against Azure OpenAI, GitHub Models, Olama, and like work with all of these different things. Again, as a .NET developer, you're used to writing middleware, using it with like ASP.NET Core, hooking things together, and this is built all on that same middleware approach and using that same middleware. We talked about vector data a little bit and interoperable extendable. Boom. I don't think this is going to play because technology has not been kind to me today. Let's see if the sound works. It doesn't work. All right. This is I'm not going to tempt fate. Ed Charbonneau is showing the Telerik extensions for Blazor that are working with AI and basically lighting up an AI chat control that they built on top of iChat client. And what's neat there is using the same abstractions with iChat client, your code continue to work against it. So here he's writing a Telerik chat. He drops in this thing, and then he says, and it basically just works against the iChat client extensions. That makes it easy for you to extend as well, because you can take advantage of those same, it's the same sort of thing. It's basically as if a database provider built you something that works with Entity Framework. All right, and so there we go with some chat. I'm going to skip ahead because this one's less fun without the sound, but Super cool. All right. I am going to have a lot of fun writing a demo that works amazing on this machine. Have no idea if it's going to work over here. So let's have fun. I fortunately have this set up on a dev box. Is anyone using dev box here? Okay. So I'm on a Mac. I could make it work on a Mac. I've got .NET installed on here. I've got VS Code, but I actually have all this stuff I've been working on here using a dev box. I'm going to open up my dev box over here. And if everything's right, this will now become a Windows machine and I'm ready to party. Okay, so that is a spoiler for later. That is also a spoiler for later. Let's go in and let us create. All right, I think I can even do. This is now where I have to make my brain say this is now Windows, right? So this is, these are these AI chat templates, or these AI templates. So the way to do this, whoop, there we go, going up here, .NET new. So first I had an old version, so I uninstalled that. Then I do .NET new install Microsoft extensions AI templates. So, we have blog posts and stuff on this. If you search for Microsoft AI templates or whatever, you'll get that. But so after doing that, I get two templates here. So I get AI chat web app, which I'll show you first. And then I get an MCP server console app. And I'll show you that later. So let me see if I can do. Okay, cool. So I could do .NET new. Actually, if I do this, .NET, let's do. Part of my confusion with working on Mac is forgetting if control and command work, but now my brain is mapped to Mac and now it's, okay. So if I do .NET new, yes, okay. .NET new AI. So here is an example, chat web -h. So this, I've got a bunch of different kind of switches on this. I could do all this from command line. I'm going to do this in here. So I'm going to go to presentation mode. All right. So after installing those templates, I could do them from command line. I could do it from VS Code. I can also go into Visual Studio. In Visual Studio, now that I've installed them, if I go into this AI filter, I have these options. So I'm going to do AI chat web app. I'll say next. So we'll call this VS Live Chat App. All right. So here I've got some cool options, and I want to spend a little bit of time. Before I do that, I'm going to, well, yeah, I'll just do that. So we'll do Control-4. Okay. So I have options. First of all, this one is not an option. This is .NET 9. You're doing it. Okay, you have these options for your AI service provider. This is the main thing you think about when you're building like a chat application. You need a large language model backend, right? So there are kind of scaling up from smallest to biggest. If I'm developing locally and I've got a powerful machine that's got a good GPU, I could run Ollama. Anyone played with Ollama? Okay, cool. Some hands. I thought you might be asleep out there, but yes, Ollama is pretty fun if you've got a machine that'll support it. You're running the large language models locally. What's neat is you can set this up from command line. Not that hard. You can do it. But we can actually orchestrate that using Aspire, which makes that even easier to kind of build and run. So Ollama, the big selling point here is it's free. You may wait. You're going to like ask a question, go get a cup of coffee, come back, and it's on word 5. Actually, it's a little better than that, but it's slower, right? It's underpowered, but free. Now, as you scale up, you could go to GitHub Models. GitHub Models is free up to a token limit, and GitHub Models offers you all kinds of different models out there. Anyone using GitHub Models? Nope. Okay, I'm going to do an advertisement for GitHub Models in a second too, because that's one of my big takeaways. And then when you go to production, you can't go to production if you've got a token limit, right? So you're going to want to deploy. You can go either to the OpenAI platform or to Azure OpenAI. The way I like to think about this, OpenAI, it's well known. It is a solid AI platform. If you are working in Azure and you've got management and like you've got your billing and your costs and you are integrated with a lot of different services, you may want your AI resources to be working against say files or things that are in Azure, et cetera. Being part of that AI platform with all the governance and all the content safety and all those sorts of things is great. So that is kind of an easy kind of movement thing. If you start with models and then go to Azure or Azure OpenAI, that's a really smooth move to do. Now, everybody talks about large language models. You can, well, a problem you run into is context. So let's say I ask an AI a question. I say, hey, I'm doing this and this. I want to buy some shoes. My shoe size is 10 and a half, sometimes 11. I want to go hiking, blah, blah, blah. Ask a question, it returns a thing. It's kind of like a web server that gives its result, like you ask a question, it comes back, it's essentially stateless, because when I ask another question, we actually have to pass that context back and forth. Somebody's maintaining that context. And in a lot of large language model conversations, you are actually passing text back and forth, right? And you're saying, hey, remember me, my shoe size is this. You're introducing yourself over and over again. There's a lot of other things that are inefficient. And when you're paying for tokens, you don't want to be wasting that. So an intelligent way to work with this is using a vector store. So a vector store, we have a very simple one that is just on disk. It is JSON files on disk for prototyping. So it can work, but it doesn't have a lot of features, not very performant. You can also, when you deploy to production, you can use Azure AI Search. Again, integrated with the Azure ecosystem. So it's kind of a smooth thing to be able to global scale, work with all the Azure things you know and love. Or you can work with Quadrant. Quadrant is great for local development, but it's also great for deploying to production. You can actually run Quadrant in a container, and then there are also hosted services for Quadrant. So it's one of those companies that gives you a free cool thing that you can run in Docker, open source, and all that. And if you want to use their hosted platform, you can do that as well. So I'm doing that, and I'm doing Aspire orchestration. All right. So if you, hopefully by now we've been talking about Aspire for a while. Aspire is neat for orchestrating distributed applications. So one very common, or one thing that I'm using a lot that is a distributed application is AI, because I've got AI services, I've got a database, I've got my vector database here, I may have other service layers, I've got my web thing. Hooking all that up, it's like either I'm doing a lot of manually setting connection strings, I'm creating Docker files, et cetera. So Aspire really shines in this case. So now I have hit a button that I didn't mean to hit, and let's see what's going on. Oh my gosh. I swear. No. I'm in some weird Zoom mode. Okay. Let me. Okay. There it is. Okay. We get through this. I feel like it didn't. So now I'm stuck in Zoom. This is okay. There it is. Okay. So I didn't get a chance. I'm going to go through that again. And I'm going to make sure that I select the things that I want to do. I'm not going to Zoom this time. We're calling it chat at 3 because that's what it gets. We're going to go using Quadrant, Aspire orchestration. All right. So when I create this, it's popping up a README. Now, you may be tempted to just close the README because that's what I usually do. The one thing is, if you do close the README, it won't show up again. Like it doesn't show up in your Solution Explorer. So if you're working in Visual Studio, I recommend keeping this open. All right. Now, as you go through, it has a thing in here where you set your connection string. Okay, I mentioned GitHub models. I'm going to show you GitHub models real quick. So if I go to I don't know, marketplace, sure. So all you need to use GitHub models is a GitHub account. And it's great to be able to kind of get started for free. You can just say, all right, I want to use, I don't know, let's use, okay, GPT-4.1. I can immediately go in, I could just start chatting with it. What is a dog? Right. So we'll just go with it. So, but assuming that worked, I could go in and I could say I want to use this model, and I can go in, I create a personal access token and get this stuff, right? So I can go in and I can compare different models. But I've already gone in and created one. I'll tell you what I did in this application, because I'm just skipping as many demo gods as I can dodge through today. So we right-click in the app host and I say manage user secrets. And in here, I would paste exactly this with my personal access token that I just created from GitHub. Okay. So when I run this, it's going to run against GitHub. It's going to go through my free token limit, which is actually pretty high. But let's say I use that up, then I could go in later and I could change the endpoint and API key to OpenAI or Azure OpenAI and just continue working. So that is cool. All right, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to open another backup one that I created this morning, which I think was called Chat App. Let me see. Chat App one. If it works, it'll save me some time. No, that's not it. All right, fine. I'll paste it. All right, well, we'll go for it. So I'm going to go into secrets. Okay, I've got a connection string in enormous mode. No, it's not Command C. Control C. Okay, great. You can't see all of it. That's all I need. Okay, let's save it. Hooray. Okay. So that is step one. Now I could just run it. I've got Docker already running. So Docker is going to be hosting my vector database. I want to do one more thing to just make this a little fun. So this, by default, will ingest two PDFs. Ingesting PDFs means just reading the text out of those PDFs and storing it in the vector database. And out of this, I could ask questions about two things: the emergency survival kit or a GPS watch. Okay. So I want to instead add in one more PDF. So we're going to go add existing item. I'll find it in my downloads. And I downloaded the PDF brochure from VS Live 2025. So now when the app starts up, my laptop will catch on fire, and the dashboard, the Aspire dashboard, will pop up. So what this is going to do is it's going to start up a few things. It's going to set the connection string or the connection for my AI backend. It is going to start up a vector database, and it's going to start up a web chat. All right, so we see Aspire about ready to kick off. No, okay. I'm going to do one other thing, which I forgot here. I'm going to update all. I'm going to do manage packages for solution. Updates include pre-release. So the reason I'm doing this is because this was built with Aspire 9.3, and we want to use 9.4, which came out last week. There's some other like dependencies and all that sort of stuff. All right. YOLO update every NuGet package to pre-release. All right, here we go. Yay. Okay. So this is the Aspire dashboard. So I love what this does for my application to be able to already see everything that's running. So one neat thing here is we've got this where it says ingested, 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 right? So those are the different PDFs it ingested. Ingesting, fancy term for read, like processed. And so then if we go back to my resources, we can see here's Quadrant. I'm going to jump right into my web app. So we'll go. All right. So I could say, let's say, I am hiking and it started raining. Help. So I'm intentionally not asking a question about a product, right? Because I want to show what it's doing for me. So it combined a few things together. First of all, it used the LLM to understand the context of my question, and then it searched in my vector database for hiking and rain safety tips or whatever, right? And it was able out of that to get information. Number one is it's giving me general information that the large language model provides. But number two is it's saying, hey, you may need information from the survival kit, right? So, so I can click on this and it takes me right to the PDF location with information about this survival kit, all right? So now let's say I made it to VSHQ 25. What time is lunch? Okay. Enjoy your meal. You made it through. Here's lunch at the mixer, right? And so I can click on this and it takes me right to it. Now, I didn't do any special configuration. I literally dropped in a PDF and I'm immediately getting intelligent information out of the schedule. Is Mads K speaking at VS? Yeah. Right? Super cool. Okay. So you may notice if I say, what is going on at VS Live? Because I type very carefully VSHQ25, it may tell me something about, in previous ones, I would very often get responses where the large language model would be like, oh, I got this. VS Live Las Vegas 2022 is starting on blah, 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 right? So you definitely need to give it the right context. But so this is hopefully if you we started late, if you fall asleep or whatever, if all you get out of this is, hey, I'm going to install these templates and try it out, I think this is a pretty cool getting started experience. I want to show you a few quick little things in Aspire dashboard. I want to show you the code. We'll rip through some slides and we'll talk about MCPs and it'll be awesome. Okay, Quadrant. Quadrant is our vector database. I didn't know anything about vector databases. I'm absolutely loving Quadrant. So first of all, here's, it's started, hosted as a Docker container. I'm going to go in and I'm going to grab the API key. Okay, so this API key, everyone screenshot that. It only works on my computer, so I'm safe. Okay. So if I go in here to the Quadrant dashboard, I paste in my API key. All right. So this is a vector database, and this is able to go through and it says, okay, I ingested all these documents and chunks. The documents is a very simple list of 3 documents, 3 PDF files, basically the name, the metadata about it. The chunks is the actual content that's in them. So here is the actual text that it ingested, right? What's really neat with these is you can go in and start playing with them and you can say, I want to look at the graph. I don't even know what this is, but it's super neat, right? So I'm going through, I'm playing, right? So this is a vector database. This is where it's actually processed these PDFs and turned it into semantically meaningful information. Meaning I can say, what's to eat at noon, and it knows, like, we're able to ask questions about, with similarity, we can say, what are all the web sessions? We're able to do a lot of that stuff. Some things will need a large language model to like process it into the meaning, but for actual like similarity search or other things like that, we can do that in the vector database. So combining the power of the two of those is really, really useful in order to like speed, leveraging my own, personal information, and then also cost savings, because I'm not going back and forth and asking general questions to the expensive cloud when I can ask them for free locally. All right, let's take a look at the code. So some neat things going on in this. First of all, Aspire. So I think I can do, I'm just going to keep this here. This is your standard Aspire setup. So first of all, we're adding a connection string. We're not actually provisioning any resource or doing anything. We're just basically saying that connection string that John copied and pasted into his user setting or secrets.json, expose that, like make that available as a resource. We'll get to that later. Vector database, builder.add quadrant. So quadrant is being hosted as a Docker container, but actually we have a NuGet package and Aspire, I forget, hosting integration thing that basically lights it up with some additional intelligence. So when we do builder.add quadrant, it knows, yeah, you're a Docker container, but you're specifically a quadrant vector database. Then we say with data volume and with lifetime, those are things that make it persistent. So if I stop and restart my application, it starts up really quickly and it can reuse the data that's already ingested. Then in my web app, it's we do add project with reference to AI, so OpenAI, so that passes in that connection string. And then we say with reference to the vector database and wait till it starts up. Don't try and start up the web app before the application's ready, before the database is ready. I'm going to go over into the web app itself, and there's lots more in here for you to play with. I think if I got that. No, okay. So I'm not going to go into too much detail here. I have some other stuff I want to make sure I get through, but we are creating AI resources. We're actually creating two of them. So one is we're creating this a chat client using GPT-4o Mini. Now this is just a string, and because using GitHub models, I could actually change this to some other thing. I can say I want 5.4 or something else, right? And then we're actually also adding an embedding generator. So this embedding generator is what allows us to ingest PDFs. So you can think of the a chat client talking to GPT-4o Mini. GPT-4o Mini is frozen in time. It was trained at a specific point of time. It's never going to learn anything else, okay? When we want to read a PDF, or we want to talk to my company's database, or we want to process, we want to create new information, what we're creating there is called an embedding. An embedding is basically taking text or other information, could be, images, could be whatever, returning that into vectors, multi-dimensional magical number vectors, right? And in order to do that, we need an embedding generator, and we're using text embedding 3 small, okay? There's some other stuff going on in here. Essentially, there's some other code that goes in and does some, ingesting. We're reading text. What's important to know about that is where we're showing an example ingesting PDFs, this could be a Word doc. This could be somebody asked yesterday about, could I use my SQL database? Absolutely, right? Anywhere you can get information you want to process. So you could say, go query my database, get this text and ingest it. You could just delete all this PDF reading code and say, no, I want to read data from my database, right? One other thing that I want to show you that's important in here is the iChat client. So remember I told you about the this common interface, the iChat client. So that's what's going on here. We're injecting an iChat client. Well, there we go, iChat client. And then we're able to use it in the code. When we swap models later or do something else, we don't need to go through and rewrite any code. We just talk to our iChat client. So here we say, we give it a prompt. I always love reading prompts, understanding them. They're just text. You can edit them. You can say always respond in Old English or whatever, and it would actually do that. And then when we're going in and editing the actual or requesting stuff from the chat, we're just saying get response async. So we just, we're going through, we're clearing stuff, we add things in, and we just say, like we're just iterating through and we're saying get streaming response async. So here, chat client, get response, whoop. But we're just saying, talking to that client. We're passing a message in, getting text back. All right. So that is my main takeaway. Install this, play with this. This is a very quick way to get up to speed. It's handling all this stuff for you internally, including stuff like I mentioned vector data. So we could talk, I could show you one of those real quick. Right. So here is an example of a class that's been annotated with vector data. No, we got 200. Sure. So here, just like if you're used to with any framework marking something as a primary key, here's a vector store key, right? Here we do things like we're using vector store, a vector store, like for instance, we need vector dimensions and distance functions. Again, this is stuff that's complicated in math and I don't really know, but fortunately this is set up for me, right? So this is something where we're able to kind of translate my data and store it in a vector database. Very quick to get going with that. All right, let us try and go back to think if I can go to there. Okay. I'll go to here. Awesome. Okay. I'm going to turn off closed caption and it's still going to stay on screen. Okay, wonderful. All right. So the vector data and extensions work with a lot of different integrations. We're going to move on to agents. So another important thing that's developing with AI is agents. So the idea of an individual chat with an AI backend is kind of step one, right? But it's very limited as far as what I can do. It's limited to how fast I can type. It's limited to me having an individual connection, individual conversation with one AI backend. So the idea with an agent is to expand things out, right? Taking advantage of a lot, like basically giving your AI conversations, your AI applications superpowers, using across the board tools, memory, orchestrating, right? To orchestrate a long running workflow. There are a lot of different things that an agent can do. Some are focused on like retrieving information. They specialize in, all I know is how to look up a booking, or I know how to look up an order. I know how to find the best similar products. What's great here is when you start breaking these apart, you know, say I have a retrieval focused one, or I have one that's focused on orchestration. I have these different agents with different jobs. Some of those jobs may be best performed by something that's not AI, right? We may use AI to kick off an agent, and that agent actually just performs a database query, right? Or it, like sometimes in the case of, say, I'm doing something with coding, maybe it just executes a build step, or it does a restore or something like that, right? So your agent is designed to perform a specific task, and by doing that, it can be very focused and best at that task, and then they can also work together. So we are working on those as we look at, you know, best solutions for these with AI extensions. And the idea here, one is to use, we can work with semantic kernel. So semantic kernel has a plugin model where you can basically associate and add on other plugins, and then you can basically just orchestrate those together. I think what I'm going to do here is show, unfortunately, my video will play, I think. Have a video. So the idea here is we have a a seed travel demo. And the idea is this is an application that stitches together several different agents. There's a Python one in the back end. There's actually it's a React front end. We have .NET orchestrating it. We have other things using MCPs to do it. And so we're going to go through a travel process. So let me see if I can play this and I'll come out and talk about it. So here, imagine you're booking a flight from New York City to Seattle. So first of all, you'd start by typing in, I want to go on a trip, right? As you go through and do this, then it's going to say, here's some different options. So let me see, it's going to think about that. Yep, okay, it's planning the trip. So one agent's job is to find the best itinerary, given some different things, right? So now I'm getting ready. I need to get approval. This goes through a different agent in a workflow. So before booking the trip, I need to wait and make sure that the trip is actually approved. I get approval, sounds great. So now I need to understand, like, what can I expense on this trip? Can I go out to big fancy dinners? So I'm going to ask that. Now, this is a different agent, which is going to go into a policy. This policy may be backed by something like a database, or maybe it's ingested my HR's PDF documents or something, right? Now it's time to do the fun thing of actually expensing my my thing. So I go through and I just upload some receipts. Now here we're using AI to actually do form reading. So this is a great service provided by Azure, which is a form recognizer service, and it's able to go through uploaded PDFs, find and categorize things, and create an expense report for me. So then finally, I could go through, I think this is done. Yep, that's done. Okay. So let me talk. Yep. Okay. There we go. All right. So now I have all the code on here. Let me see if I can get that going quickly on here. The best place to look at this is going to be, if I go to Maddie. Now, this is the real boss challenge. I'm going to have to spell Maddie Montequila. I can't do that. And let's go. And the other option is Luis Quintanilla. So let me see if I go Maddie. Of course not. Okay. Sign in. What I want to do is show you the code for this. And if it's not going to be convenient, then we'll skip over. Okay. I'm going to go to a seed simple. So 2? Yes. Oh. I'm surprised it's not showing in my recent repositories. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. MONTA? 2. Thank you. Sorry, Maddie. Okay. Yay! Okay, so we go to users. There's only one Maddie in the world. We're going to go to her seed simple, which, there it is. Great. Wonderful. Using vscode.dev, which is amazing. All right. Just going to show a couple of things real quick. Okay. So a few things that are useful in here is the, if I go into the service, there are these different process steps. So there are things in here where I define different, like here's a process step, here's a different thing. What Maddie did, the reason I opened up Maddie's copy of it is she actually stitched all this together using the latest Aspire. So this uses Aspire 9.4. If I can go there. Oh, all right. So this is going through and doing all of the fancy Aspire stuff. That's not going to work for me. Okay. So then the important thing is we've created a bunch of different steps, and then we just stitch them all together. So the steps basically, the LLM, and we also have an MCP server here. So the MCP server is also just orchestrated as part of this. And then the steps on making this actually work is number one, saying what's the user intent? What is the user asking to do? And then it's going to go and say, okay, kick off this one, kick off this one. Now I'm short on time, so I'm going to move on and wrap up stuff. Listen.
MCP extension.
What do you use MCP extension? I'm not sure I understand the question there.
Wide.
So in that one, it basically, I'll talk to you afterwards because I'm short on time and I want to make sure I get through all this. I'll show you in the code. Okay. Here's another example of an MCP. This is one that that Brady showed off at Build, where it's basically using an MCP to play music. What's really useful here is the question is play the song Mary Had a Little Lamb on a specific device at a specific time. So the way to think about MCPs is that these are things that you ask a question to the LLM is now able to call into tools. And so you don't have to actually phrase things exactly correctly. You can say the song, and it's able to say, oh, the LLM knows I have these tools available, and it goes and gets a specific one, right? So play, saying, okay, here's how to play. And then the interesting one here is which device. And he's created a tool that is able to enumerate MIDI devices on a computer. It's able to actually select the correct one. So I'm going to skip over that. So one other thing here is evaluations. So I mentioned there before that that's an important part of AI is being able to safely evaluate your content, making sure you're getting back what you wanted. If I go to dev blogs, okay, and then we're going to look for evaluations. So we've got this whole MEAI thing, and what it allows doing is basically writing unit tests for your code. All right. So you can say, here's what I want. For an example is content safety, but there's all other sorts of ones. You could say for accuracy, right? For exact information. What's really neat with this too is that it actually integrates with Azure DevOps. So you can have it run as part of your CI pipeline. And if something changes over time, you can say, hey, I'm not actually getting the results that I wanted back. Maybe I need to fine tune things, use a different model, et cetera. All right. One other thing that I did want to show off is using MCP. So unfortunately, I don't have the right, let me see if I go. Okay. So if I go in here, I could say File, New, Project. I can create an MCP. So our first MCP template is basically a hello world. And it just creates one that just gives you random numbers. And this works in Visual Studio, VS Code as well. And so here, this one is going to ask a question. And so this is one that as part of the publishing process, you go through, you follow the steps in the README, you can publish it to NuGet. If I say MCP. So here we have a new thing lit up here where it says MCP server. So now I could create other MCPs and I could say, okay, I want this one. And this is the actual code that you would paste in. So this would light up and take advantage. You could use this in an IDE. You could also orchestrate it together with some other ones. I want to show 2 other quick MCP things to show off. 3 things. One is a shameless promotion here for a blog post that I wrote, which is on 10 MCP servers. The best one that I've found to get started as a developer is the Learn docs, followed closely by some other things like Azure, MCP server, et cetera. But the Learn docs are amazing because, as I mentioned before, all the LLMs are trained at a certain point in time. Like, as an example, .NET Aspire 9.4 just came out last week. If I ask an LLM, it may not know anything about Aspire 9.4, probably not. But if I've enabled the Learn MCP server, then I'm going to be able to say, ask questions, and it's going to say, it'll say, oh, I don't know the answer, but I can look that up in the docs, and it's able to pull that information out, right? So now if I query and I say, what features are in .NET Aspire 9.4, I'm able to do that. Now, in order to do that, you have to make sure you're in agent mode. And then you can go in, you can enable your tools. So what this template that I just showed you allows you to do is add yours to this list. There's 2 ways you could do this. One is you could just run it locally. Just create it, never publish it to NuGet and be done. If you want to distribute it, then you can distribute it out to NuGet and then allow other people to do it. And they would go here and copy that in and into their MCP configuration and be able to use it. 2 other real quick things as I wrap up here is that for more information, like on the whole idea of MCP in agent to agent, we just did a blog post on doing that. We're seeing some different ways of orchestrating agents, and there's A2A, there's different, kind of like workflow systems that we're building and evaluating. And then also we're seeing more and more of this, people building directly using MCPs as that layer. One final thing I want to point out here is we just did this series called there's Let's Learn MCP, which is a great kind of getting started. But even better, we just had MCP Dev Days. And so this was just last week, tons of content on MCP. So if you want to learn more on MCPs, that's a kind of great place to look. The main takeaway that I hope you got from today, install those AI templates. They're a great way to get started with building 2 different things. The AI chat template, which does data ingestion, uses a MEAI vector database, .NET Aspire, makes it really easy to get started quickly. And then as you're building MCPs, you can build MCP servers using the new template we've got for you, deploy them to NuGet. And the final thing is, as a .NET developer, you are empowered to build AI solutions. You have access to the entire ecosystem, to all the best and newest things that are coming out, and it's wrapped up neatly for you in all these kind of primitives and tools that you're used to as a .NET developer. Hopefully that unlocks things and makes it a little easier to get started for you. All right, that's all the time I've got. Thanks a bunch.